Hello, grade 2. Today we'll be reading a story called Boxes of Bloom. Okay? The genre of the story is a realistic fiction. As we mentioned before, that a realistic fiction is a made-up story. A made-up story means that the story is not real. Okay? So the person or the author who writes the story created or made up the story and then he wrote it down. What about realistic? Why is it called realistic fiction? Because the characters in the story do things that can happen in real life. So the events in the story seems real. Okay? So a realistic fiction is a made-up story that has characters, a setting, and events that seem real. Okay? So who are the characters? The characters are the people that are in the story. What about the setting? The setting is the place where the story takes place and when the story takes place. Does it take place in the morning? Is it at night? Okay? And also, the author usually describes the setting. He gives details about the setting so the reader can picture the story in a better way. The readers can realize how the story or the place is almost as like a real place. Okay, like as you guys will see in the story that this boy, he lives in the city and he will describe the city. It's almost, which is the same like real cities in real life. And the events that happen in the story are almost the same as what real people do. Right? Let's start reading. Boxes of Blooms. The first page, 62. Louis lives in the city now. When he looks out his window, he sees cars, taxis, and buses. He hears honking horns. He smiles at the people in their colorful clothing. He watches the building's shadows grow as the sun sets. So the story begins by saying that Louis used to live in another place, but now he lives in the city. Maybe he lived in the suburbs, maybe he lived in a countryside, but now he's living in the city. So when he looks out of the window, he sees many cars and taxis and buses, and he hears the cars beeping or honking. Okay, so it's noisy in the city. He smiles at the people and the colorful clothing. It shows you when he looks out the window, he smiles. He feels happy. It brings him joy to see people wearing colorful clothing. And he also watches the building's shadows grow as the sun sets. So in the city, it tells you here what are some things that you'll find in the city. Plenty cars, people walking on the street, many buildings, and you can see the shadows of the building as the sun sets. That means the sun starts to go away. Page 64. Spring is here. Spring is Louis's favorite season, but it's time to see spring in the city. Something is missing. There are no butterflies, Louis tells his parents. Butterflies like flowers, Mom answers, but there are not many flowers in the city. Then let's plant a garden, Louis says. So, while Louis and his family are eating, they start talking. And Louis says that spring is here and it's his favorite season. But he says he feels, the sentence here shows you that it's difficult to see spring in the city. Because as you know, spring is a season where the weather starts to get warmer, there's plenty of rain, flowers start to grow and bloom. But here it says something is missing. So Louis feels like there's something that he misses something. He says there are no butterflies. So his mom tells him butterflies like flowers. And there are not many flowers in the city. So Louis gets an idea. He says, let's plant a garden. Let's see what his parents think. A garden needs lots of space to grow. I'm not sure there is enough room, Dad answers. Louis says, how about a little garden in the window? We had one at my old school. It was called a window box. His parents look at each other. That's a good idea, Mom says. We should ask the landlord if it's all right. Dad says, we can talk to Mr. Khan tomorrow. So, Dad tells Louis that to grow a garden, they need a lot of space. They need a big piece of land, or they need more, like a big ground to grow. So Louis starts thinking. He says, we can grow a little garden. And then he remembers that in his old school, they used to have window box. So he says, we used to have a window box at the windows in our school, and we used to grow flowers. So his parents liked his idea and said, okay, we have to ask the landlord first. Mr. Khan. Okay, Mr. Khan is the landlord. A landlord is the person who owns the building. So they live in a building, and the owner of the building is Mr. Khan. Okay, this is his building, and they live in it. And when there's something that's not working or needs to be fixed, they go to Mr. Khan. Let's ask about your idea, Dad says. After breakfast on Saturday, on the first floor, Dad knocks on a door. Mr. Khan answers. Dad and Louis tells him about Louis's idea. Window boxes, huh? Mr. Khan says, that's a great idea. They will make the building look nice. So on Saturday morning after breakfast, Louis and his dad, they go to Mr. Khan. And they ask him, what do you think if we grow flowers in window boxes? So Mr. Khan starts thinking, and he says, that's a great idea. That shows that he likes Louis's idea. And he says, it will also make the building look very nice. On page 68, Mr. Khan builds a window box while Louis and Dad gets bags of soil. Mom gets seeds. As Louis is planting the seeds, Denny Taylor stops by. She asks, what are you doing, Louis? She asks, what are you doing? Louis explains. Denny smiles. What a good idea! Do you think I can have a window box too? Louis and Mom make a sign and put it in the elevator. Come to a meeting if you want to help butterflies, says the sign. The next day, most neighbors come to Louis's apartment. Louis says, we called this meeting for an important reason. We want butterflies to come to the city. Mr. Khan will let us have window boxes to grow flowers. Everyone wants one. Okay, so after they told Louis and his dad told Mr. Khan about his idea, Mr. Khan, the landlord, he builds or makes a window box. Okay, this is the window box that Mr. Khan makes. Okay, and Louis and his dad, they bring soil. Soil is the dirt or the brown thing that we put in the ground, and we put in the seed, and so we can start planting or growing a fruit or vegetable or flowers. Okay, so here the neighbors, they work together, they cooperate. Okay, so Mr. Khan, he builds the window box. Louis and Dad, they get bags of soil, and Mom gets the seeds. And then they start planting seeds in the window box. Then one of the neighbors, Denny Taylor, she sees it and she asks, well, what is it? So he starts to explain that this is called a window box. And she says, oh, what a nice, she likes the idea too, and she wants to have her own window box. So Louis and his mom, they make a sign, okay? They write something on a paper and they taped it to the elevator. So all the other neighbors can have an idea and come to the meeting and Louis will explain to them what they will do. Okay, remember that a meeting is when a group of people, they meet together or they gather together and talk or discuss about something. So Louis, all the neighbors came to Louis's house and he started explaining or telling them what he wants to do. He said, and he started showing them what they will do. He showed them the window box and the seeds and the soil and how they will plant. So all the neighbors liked the idea and they wanted their own window boxes too. Okay, on page 70, Denny Taylor wants to plant lavender. She says, I can almost smell it now. Mr. Khan will plant daisies and zinnias. Okay, Dad and Denny and Mr. Khan build the boxes. Louis paints them. Mom and Mrs. Khan bring bags of soil to the building. They pour the dirt into window boxes. They scurry around for days, working and working and working. Okay? So, as you see here, and while you're reading the story, you can think, what are they doing? They are working together. First, these are the steps. They're working together to build the boxes, and each one has a job. Like Dad and Mr. Khan are building window boxes, and Mrs. Mom and Mrs. Khan, they're bringing soil. Louis is painting the boxes. They're all working together. They're working very fast, so they scurry around working fast for many days. Okay, so here scurry means to work quickly or move quickly. Okay, it says here Khan brings bags of soil. Mrs. Mom and Mrs. Khan bring bags of soil to the building. They pour the dirt into window boxes. Okay, here the words soil and dirt have the same meaning. So this means they're synonyms. Synonyms are words that have the same or almost the same meaning. So soil and dirt have the same meaning. They are synonyms. Alright, next let's go to the next page. Mr. Khan and his son hang up the window boxes. There is one in every window. Denny and Mom put in the soil. Then Louis plants the seed. The seed will grow into flowers that butterflies like. Here it starts to explain that they hung up the window boxes in every window and they start planting the seeds in the soil. They are planting the seeds so that when the flowers come, butterflies can come and flutter around the flowers. One day, Mrs. Khan invites Louis and Mom to visit. I have something to show you. Look, buds. Louis sees tiny flower buds on the ends of the long, tall stems. Soon, in every window box, green sprouts push their way up through the soil. The plant grows taller and taller, reaching for the sun. Okay, so after many days or after a while, Mrs. Khan asks Louis and his mom to come to her house, and she shows them something that she sees. She says, "Look, the buds are starting to open. They're starting to sprout. So the buds are starting. Okay, these are plants. The plants are starting to open. So if you see here, the word sprout, the synonym for sprout would be plants, because a sprout means the seeds start to grow and start to open. So now it's starting to become a plant. Flowers bloom. Soon the window boxes overflow with yellow, purple, pink, red, and oranges. Another day, Denny Taylor comes to Louis's door. She holds out a sprig of purple flowers. Louis sniffs the lavender. Its soft scent fills him with joy. Beautiful, isn't it? Denny asked. Lewis smiles and nods. Okay, after many days, all the window boxes start to have different flowers. Okay, remember, each neighbor grew their own type of flowers. Denny grew lavenders, another person grew daisies, another Lewis grew zinnias. So one day, Denny Taylor brings Lewis a spray of lavenders. He started to sniff the lavender. Sniff means to smell it. And its soft scent fills him with joy. You see the sentence? It shows you how he felt when he smelled the nice scent or the nice smell of the flowers. He was filled with joy. It shows you that when he smelled the nice scent, it made him feel happiness, or he made him feel happy. Okay? People passing on the street stop and admire the colorful window boxes on the building. They smile and point, but Lewis can only stare at the rainbow of flowers, frowning. Something is still missing. Okay, so the people on the street are starting to notice and see that their building is so beautiful and so colorful. So they stop on the street and start to look. But Lewis was frowning. Frowning means he had a sad face. His face was not smiling, because it shows you that there's something. Remember, why did he think of growing a garden in the first place? He likes butterflies, and the reason that he wanted to grow a garden in the first place was to see butterflies. So he was still sad that he didn't see any. Okay, so here the sentence says, Lewis can only stare at the rainbow of flowers, frowning. Something's still missing. So this sentence shows you that how he feels, that he feels sad. He sits on his bed. The scent of the flowers blows into his room. Suddenly he sees something. There, in the flowers, a yellow butterfly is fluttering. Then another butterfly arrives, and another, and now butterflies come from all around to Lewis's building. So do people from around the city. Everyone loves the butterfly building. So one day while he was sitting on his bed, he sees a yellow butterfly fluttering. Okay, a butterfly comes to fly around his flowers, and then more and more butterflies come. Okay, how do you think that Lewis felt? He felt happy. He was waiting for butterflies to come, and everyone was very happy that his building had butterflies, and that's how this building was known as the Butterfly Building. Okay? So, as we mentioned in class, we said, how do you know that this story is a realistic fiction? There are certain events or certain things that happen in the story that can happen in real life. For example, neighbors can talk to each other, can have a relationship. They can do things together. Like, for example, Lewis and his neighbors, they grew flowers together. They had meetings to discuss what they can do for their building. Okay? How is in Lewis's building different after they started growing the window boxes? If you think about it, in the beginning of the story, if you look at the building, his building was plain. It was bland. It was just an empty building. See, it was just a normal and empty building. But after they started growing window boxes, it became a beautiful and colorful building. Okay, how do you think the illustrations or the pictures in the story help you understand? It gave you an idea of what his neighborhood looked like. It gave you an idea how Lewis's neighborhood is similar to yours, to your neighborhood. Okay? These are certain things that we discussed about today in the story. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Sorry. Okay, bye guys.